Yep, it's on.
Hey guys, I'll start. For me, it was actually in college. Really funny because I was going to school. I went all the way up to UC Davis. I'm like, I want to be a psychologist. That's what I want to do. And while I was there, I always, since high school before, had the interest in working in music and radio specifically. But I didn't think that there was like a career there. I just thought like, well, I don't sing. Not really that good at instruments, so that's it. But that was where I learned, and I started interning for our campus radio and our campus TV. And then when I realized that it was, start talking to people who work in music, I was like, wait, okay, this actually could be a career path. So that's when I started interning outside for our local radio stations, and that's just where it all started. And I still graduated with psychology, but I interned and worked, and then when I moved back to LA, that's where I got the job, which I'll talk more about, but yeah.
Alrighty, who's up next? Don't be shy, y'all.
I guess we'll just go down the line. Yeah. So yeah, I got my start similar in radio. Got an internship while I was in college. Ended up not finishing college because the radio internship was very powerful. It was a great radio station, #1 radio station in the country. So I had to take it. Called my mom. I was like, Mom, should I stay in school or should I take this job? She's like, do what you want to do.
Which station was it?
Power 106. So did that, took the internship. While I was there for about a year or so, I met an artist who kept coming up to the station with other people, other artists that would come up and do interviews and things like that. Local guy, he wasn't a big name or anything like that, but very talented and very cool. We talked all the time, and he gave me his music. I listened to it, I liked it, thought it was good. We stayed in touch. I told him I'd help him out any way I could. I knew nothing about anything at that time, but I just knew that people came to the station a lot, so I talk about it whenever I can to whoever seemed to care about music. And one night we had Janet Jackson on the show. Jermaine Dupri was on the show as well as when they were still together. They were married. And Janet was very cool, and we were all having a good time. Our show was at 7. I did 7 to 10 o'clock at night show. So she invited us to go out with her after the show. We ended up wrapping early, pre-taped the rest of the show, about an hour. So we left and went with her to this club in Hollywood, and we were having a good time, and having a few drinks, and I got excited and took a moment and tugged on her shirt and was like, hey, I got this really cool kid who's awesome and his music is really good, and just told him everything I knew about the kid, just gave her my elevator pitch. She thought it was cool, and she was like, you should meet my manager, he's here, you guys should show him the music. I was like, all right, cool. Manager came over, gave him the same pitch. I didn't think he was interested at all because he just stood there looking at me like, wow. And he just pulled out his pocket, he's like, here, just take my card, email me tomorrow, and like walked away. Definitely not gonna hear back from this. So I emailed him the next day, I sent him the music. He called me and told me, bring this kid in, I want to sign him. So I called the kid, his name is Mateo. His name is Mateo. Took Mateo in the next day, and they signed him on the spot for management. A few months after that, they signed him to Interscope, and then he was on tour, and just, that's when I figured out what music management was. I didn't even know what it was before that, but I wouldn't say that, you know what I mean? Like, I'm at this big radio station, I see all these people all the time, and I don't know what they do, I just know that they know that person and that person. But I didn't want to ask, but it's like, okay, so manager, oh, got it, all right, cool, that's what they do, oh, right, great. So I told him, look, I don't want any money or anything, you guys do what you want with this kid, sign him, just keep me involved in the project. So they kept me on as like a, manager, help, artist, talent, liaison, whatever, made up a name for me. And learned all I could there, and then from there, I got a job with Azoff Music Management, which is like the biggest management company in the world, and started working with Earth, Wind & Fire, Jennifer Hudson, Raphael Sadiq, and you name it. So yeah.
Yeah, shout out to her.
So I'm Claire. I have a little bit of a different background. My dad was a musician, so I was exposed to live music and events really early on. I was a teen mom. I had 3 kids really really young, and I had to hustle. Every odd job imaginable I worked at. But I could say about 10 years ago, I went on a really bad date. We went to a music festival, and despite him being super lame, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the production behind it, and I started doing my research. I found out who produced it, completely hunted down an internship, started working with them. Absolutely what you would think an internship was: fetching coffee, walking dogs, cleaning toilets while raising the 3 kids and a full-time job. And then from there, that story kind of came full circle, and by the time I left there, I think that's where we met, right? Sunset Strip. By the time I left there, I was third in command and head of operations. And then from there, that went into tons of freelance. We worked for Rock the Bells, Pay Dues, Smoke Out, really honed my skills around marketing, learned business development, understood client services, and then it went into like build and fabrication. About 6 years ago, I started my own company called 20 Foot Bear. We do experiential events, so from soup to nuts, A to Z, design, concepts, build, execution on-site programming. And now today we have 2 companies, and I manage a nonprofit for kids.
Wow, super.
Hey guys, I'm Jennifer Horton. So I'm currently the CEO president of Matrix Artists. So we are a music management company. We also do tour production. We have Matrix Productions as our sister partner company. So yeah, I guess I also have a little bit of a different background. I had no idea I was going to end up doing this and be sitting here in front of you guys talking about a career in music. Also, like Tony said, I would have really never been able to tell you how anyone could have made money doing this. My mom actually worked in the fine arts side of things in Houston, so she did graphic design for like the opera and the ballet, and it was more, I danced growing up, and I had an exposure to that, and it was very much like the starving artist, like the passion, like this has to be kind of like your one and only calling. And I went to college in New York at Columbia. I went for chemical engineering. My dad was a scientist. I was gonna go that route. But I just always felt like I had to have this kind of like artistic outlet. So while I was in New York, I would go take dance class because there's like really dope dance studios. And then I realized like, wow, a lot of these people are like working dancers. They're on Broadway, they're doing music videos. And I'm like, how is this possible? Like they're really paying their rent for being like a dancer in a music video. So, I think that just kind of opened up my eyes to the fact that, which is kind of part of why we're here, is that there's just really so many paths, to take. And so one of my dance friends was like, you should go to LA, for a summer. And I was kind of getting a little burnt out on academics. I've been working on a couple law firms, which I love, but I needed to just kind of figure out, I'm like, all right, it's before senior year, I gotta like figure out life. Either it's gonna be this and straight to law school, or maybe I just need a break. And I came to LA and also found an internship, like came out here, and actually I started off working at a couple of dance studios for work study programs so I could get like free classes, and quickly learned that there was these things called talent agencies that were the ones that got you the jobs. So I sent my resumes out. I'm like, oh, my resume is popping. Like, they're all gonna call me, you know what I mean? And then I'm like,
Do you not know what's going on?
exactly. So it was like crickets. So then I was like, okay, well, where are these fools at? I'm about to drive over. So I don't know what possessed me. I like went and just drove to these places. There was like 3 or 4 like agencies that specifically represented dancers and choreographers. So they were out on tours and music videos and commercials and stuff with like all the big artists. And I just walked in and I was like, yeah, hey, so I'm here about the internship, which was not posted, which I just made up because I found and the first 2, they were like, yeah, the so-and-so, he's out to lunch, like come back. I'm like, okay. And then like the next one, I don't remember what they said. And the third one, I was like, yeah, I'm here to see, so of course I say like the head of the department. I'm like, I'm here to see so-and-so about the internship. And they're like, hold on. The girl there about the internship. So then this guy comes out and he's just like, can I help you? And I'm like, yeah, hi. Like I sent my resume. And so anyway, I don't know. He just gave me a chance. He just like had a conversation with me, and he was just like, after he sat for a second, he was like, you have a lot of balls. And I was like, okay, well, it just kind of seemed obvious. Like, you guys didn't call me. I don't know. thought I was a great fit, you know? So he was like, well, when can you start? So I was like, now, you know, like, and so then I finished out the summer and they told me like, wow, like, you know, a lot of interns, like they flake out because like in the first 2-3 weeks you realize like, I mean, this was a little bit before you guys' time possibly, but I mean, we had to like mail things and like I'm getting paper cuts and like faxing and I mean, it was not glamorous and people are thinking like, you're in this office and like celebrities are gonna walk by every day or something and after people don't see celebrities in the first 2 weeks, they're like, oh, wait, so it's like a regular job. Like, but it is, but it isn't, you know, because then there's just like, you know, what I found for me is it opened the door to entrepreneurship, you know, which I didn't know was gonna lead me to start my own company, but what I realized is I just entered a world of like creative entrepreneurs and I just found it to be, you know, very, you know, inspiring for me, but also like, you know, it was great to be able to support other people that, you know, needed people to kind of like us to believe in them and see the potential, but also guide them and say, hey, like your pictures suck or like you need to this or that, you know, so it was like being able to be a voice of sort of reality, but also encouraging, because of course you're gonna get the no's from everybody else. So you need, you know, people on your team that see what you're trying to do, which, you know, ultimately led to me becoming an agent at that company, because I ended up being offered, I went back to school, and they offered me an assistant position to come back, like 8 something an hour. I remember getting my first check and I was like, Mom, so do I like buy gas with this? Like, what is this check? Like, I don't know, you know, and she was just like, okay, well, you chose to go out there. But yeah, so I ended up just carving a whole path at that company. Then from there, I really felt like I wanted to be closer to the artist side of it. I had clients that were working with artists, but some of them were also singers and songwriters. And so I kind of got to go through this journey really from like the bottom up with people who are entering the industry. Like often you enter the industry as like a songwriter, a producer, or, you know, a model or whatever. And then sometimes that turns into, then you're an actor, an artist or whatever. So I got to, as a talent representative, I really found that I loved being able to follow that path. Also because I had the interesting kind of like, just the academic legal side of things. I love learning about contracts, learning about unions, like, so that's just been a never ending, I mean, I learn all the time, like there's things right now, everything changing with streaming, so, you know, that part, you can kind of, you know, still merge like other interests or other avenues that you are passionate about into the career. So for me, you know, the contracts, negotiation side, I definitely love making deals and making money, and but yeah, so then that led to me starting my own company years later, and I've had my company for 10 years now.
How you doing, everybody? The Zoom, right? The Zoom?
Yeah, we can.
So my name's Aris Kirkland. I got my start pretty much, you know, it was a little different. I was a knucklehead when I was younger. I was in the streets a little bit. So I was like 16, 17 in Detroit. And I started basically doing flyer promotion, street team. I was in the clubs. I was 16 years old, I was doing 18 and up parties. By 18, I was doing 21 and up. And I was running around with all the guys in Detroit, you know, the older guys that ran the clubs, all that. So I was passing out flyers, I was, you know, hanging out with the DJs, you know, doing that kind of thing. But I still didn't really have any direction at that time. Ended up going to Florida for a minute, and I hooked up with a company called Frontline Promotions. And at this time, they were like the biggest company in Orlando. They owned a few clubs. They had the classic weekend contract with the state of Florida and Hennessy. And so they used to do these big events. And I remember one classic weekend, they made like $1 million profit, like from events.
Wow.
And I remember just being blown away by like, y'all made that much money in one weekend from throwing parties? Like, so, you know, I kind of took that mentality and started getting more into them on the operational side and learning more about the liquor business, the club business, just music promotions in general, just in everything in the promotions world. And then, you know, a few things happened, ended up getting out here to LA. I was backstage at a Lil Wayne concert, and that's when I met my mentor, Troy Marshall. And I got his business card, and I blew Troy up every day for about 3 months after that concert. Like literally called him every day for 3 months, and I couldn't get no one but his assistant or the voicemail. And the assistant said the same thing every time. Yeah, I'll let him know to call you, you know, to take the message down. One day I called, he finally picks up. I'm like, hey, Troy, I want an internship, you know, please help me out. He's like, come to the office. I'm like, when? He's like, right now. So I drove, went to the office, sat me down with human resources, did my paperwork and everything there, and then I started the next day. And it was pretty much similar to what you were saying. I felt like I was working at FedEx for a while. You know, shipping packages, loading the promotional product room. You know, just it was a lot of this labor. You know, and then you know, I didn't really see any artists and stuff like that, but ended up getting hired halfway through my internship as his assistant, as Troy's assistant. And so as the time went by over there, I pretty much became the glue for the rap department. So I was assisting probably 3-4 executives and directing the entire street team across the country as far as making sure they was paid, getting their product, making sure they had the different records that we were promoting. And they were pretty much, you know, I was pretty much a liaison between, you know, the streets of America for our records, the promo world, and the office in Troy's department. So that's how I pretty much got started with that, with the promotions, with the record promotions. And after Interscope, you know, I was there during like the Jimmy Iovine regime, when it was like real executives, real artists over there. Some things changed. Everybody over there kind of went everywhere. We had a down cycle for a minute, you know, where of course I had to pick up other jobs, other things to do when everybody left and everybody was kind of scrambling. But then everybody ended up just getting positions, you know, friends of mine that were all at Interscope. I call this Interscope babies. But now everybody's everywhere. Like, you know, everybody that I was working with at that time, executives at Atlantic, executives at Capitol, and everybody was calling me like, hey, do you still got your club connections, your DJ connections? I'm like, you know, yeah. So they just started cutting me checks and started promoting new music in LA. And, you know, it was a struggle for a minute, but, you know, for the last 5 years, I've strictly been doing record promotions. And I don't work with one particular record label. I consult for, you know, all the major labels, so Capitol, Warner Brothers, Atlantic, Interscope, Def Jam, everybody. You know, they need me and my business partners to get to the keys of Los Angeles for radio and nightclub promotion. So, and I'm here now, here today. So.
So within everything that you guys have, you know, overcome from the beginning that we just heard about to now, what have been some of your biggest obstacles and how did you overcome the obstacles or the obstacle?
Want me to start it?
Yeah, anybody can grab it.
I think one of the biggest obstacles that I've had to deal with in the business is basically proving people wrong. You know, you do something for so long and people try to keep you in that box. And you know, and that can hinder you sometimes and even discourage you. So, you know, overcoming that obstacle is a big thing. If people trying to get you in that box. So, you know, I say always just try new things and don't be afraid to, you know, take on the new challenges, the new projects. You know, always speak up for yourself in these meetings. You know, you're always going to be around people that's bigger than you. You know, you become a VP, you're always going to be around a senior VP or a president or a CEO. Or, you know, once you become the CEO, then you got the board to deal with. But just when you're in these rooms, don't be afraid to voice your opinion and really speak up for yourself and try to get those new opportunities for yourself. That's a big obstacle, is that, you know, after a while you might love the position that you're in, but, you know, anybody wants to grow and do different things after so long of doing the same thing. And you have to be willing to, you know, go after it and fight for it like you did for the position you have at that time. So that's been the biggest obstacle for me, is making sure I don't get put in that box.
Is there a method to breaking out of that box once it starts to like form around you? Like, I know sometimes people will be like, you know, I want to do A, B, and C, but then should I focus on just A and then B and C will come, or should I do a little bit of both or all three and see which one gives? And then now you don't have experience in all three, so that when the opportunities come up, like how do you strategize your way out of that box so that it doesn't enclose on you when you start to see it coming?
For me, it's just always from the beginning. You know, and even just in my position, it's always been guerrilla marketing. So that mindset has always been stuck with me. It's just go after it. You know, if you don't have that skill set, learn that skill set. You know, and just go after it. Don't let yourself be hindered by your own fear. That's how I look at it.
And to add to that, because I found myself in that situation, that was part of, you know, what I was thinking was one of my obstacles. Is not staying in that box. And what's really important, I think, is that people are always going to try to keep you in that box all the time. It's going to happen, trust me, sadly. But the thing is, you kind of have to think, of course, outside the box, and don't put your eggs like all in one basket. You know, like build relationships everywhere. Don't depend on just one person to make something for you. You know, like you have to make that happen yourself, and make sure that you're talking to these other people, because you don't know, all these other people that are around you, they're probably getting ignored, probably not so much. People are paying attention just to like one boss or one director. But it's like, hey, while you're doing all that, learn all these other skill sets, you know? One thing that I remember someone told me too was like, you know, be so good they can't get rid of you, you know, of everything. So it doesn't matter, like you may have a job title, but go and, you know, talk to the guy that does like the production, talk to the guy that does, or the lady, you know, that is doing something else, you know, marketing, and just learn it all, because you'll just get the bigger picture and you're able to get out of that box because your vision is just like a little wider, you know? So that's just wanted to add to that, but I don't want to cut you off, you? Okay, so, but a personal obstacle that I wanted to touch base on, and just considering that, you know, this, I believe there's some people here who are probably like high school or college or trying to get into the business. For me, that was my big obstacle, where I left off. After I graduated, I moved back to LA, from like Northern California back to LA, and that was what I'm like, cool, I want to work in music, this is like so great and fun. But I didn't know anybody, like no one at all, and who worked in music. So I was like, okay, how do you do this? You know, like, how do you learn about these networks? Like this, I was telling Noelle, you know, I'm like, I wish this would have been the thing when I was starting, you know, like 8 years ago, 9 years ago after college. You know, I'm like, I wish. So what I did was just, I literally applied everywhere. I remember I would like, go home, you know, apply to every radio station, every TV network, every, just anything. Even like look up things on Craigslist, you know, to be like, oh, entertainment personal assistant. I'm like, I don't know who this entertainer is, but I'm gonna like, hey, can I like help you out with stuff? And like a lot of times you said crickets, you know, people. And I thought I had a cool resume, like, oh, I did all this cool stuff in college, I'm smart, like, hey guys, like, help, you know? It's like, no, it's, a lot of it is like who you know, but sometimes you don't know anyone, so you really have to throw yourself out there. So I finally got my first phone call, which was from LA, you guys know, so like Amp and K-Rock. That was the first person to work for the street team. So I took it, I was like, yeah, I don't care, you know, like whatever, they told me like to pay, I was like, oh, but I don't care. I'm like, you know, I remember my parents being like, you have a degree, like, how are you gonna like, go to that? And I'm just like, well, I want it, I gotta start somewhere, meet someone. And so I went in there and I was like, cool, I made it, right? Like I worked for a cool radio station, I'm like seeing like, you know, yeah, I was kind of passing out stickers and like driving around and like in the back end of everything, but I thought it was kind of cool when I would see like, you know, like Bruno Mars walk by or like something like that. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But I never was talking to them, you know, it wasn't me who was working with them. So that was like, now when I'm in, I was like, okay, how do I get over there now, you know? And that's where people try to keep you in that box. Yeah. Where they're just like, no, you're the promo kid, or you're this, you're that, and you're just like, no, I can do these other things, but just like everything else, you kind of have to pay your dues and get to that next spot. And that's always just a difficult thing that seems difficult. And for me, personally, I remember the people that I started with, people were kind of quitting because they're like, I can't live off $10, you know, like I can't, an hour, you know, I can't do all this. So people just quit, go to different jobs, and that's where I was like, okay, you know, like I need to do more. And once again, going back to not letting people keep you out of the box, that's where I learned, you know, like it's not just networking, meeting people at other places, but where you're at, you know, build from there, you know, so that's where it was. Hit up the imaging guy, production guy, like become friends with different people where you're just learning. It was just putting yourself out there. You have to do the work.
Yeah, definitely. Like, even just to add 2 more cents to that, like back with my internship at Interscope, you know, it was times where the promotion department was real slow. There was like literally nothing going on. Like all the executives would be out of town, on the road, or whatever. So the office would be like a ghost town. But there was still other departments that needed help. So as an intern, I would go to the A&R department and I would help out the A&Rs do whatever they needed done. And you know, I would go up to the Aftermath office, and I spent a lot of time in the Aftermath office, just, you know, because Aftermath, like, who doesn't want to be around what was going on? And at that time, you know, some of you guys might be a little too young to know, but like, you know, 10, 12 years ago, whatever, Dr. Dre, Eminem, 50 Cent were like, was like everything. Like, there was like, all, it was like Drake times 10 at that time. So It was like crazy. So, you know, always spend time in the aftermath office, always spend time in the A&R office, always spend time in the marketing department. And then when my execs were back, then, you know, I would stay with them. But, you know, working that building and making sure I have relationships across the board really helped me now because, you know, a lot of those A&Rs, a lot of those product managers, a lot of those assistants back then are product managers now. A lot of those A&R assistants are A&Rs now, you know, and they're my friends. I'm not looking at them as the exec that helped me. This is my friend and you're an A&R. Hey bro, hey, check this out. We need to do something with this artist, or, you know, what was the budget for this? I need this budget to do this. You know, that was more of a friendship conversation with power players versus, hey, can you help me out? You know, so yeah, work in the building is definitely important to keep you out the box, and working those different relationships is definitely important to keep you outside that box.
And like willing to do more, you know, like,
Yeah,
for example, you think like, I'm only working right now from, just say whatever your block is. And it's not the only time you have to make things happen, you know, like, talk to the people in the studio, like you said, like, hey, it's like, nobody's here in the office, nobody's gonna be like, hey, what you doing in here, you know, like, sorry if you get in trouble, I didn't tell you to do this, but you know, like, go and like bother that person that's working the overnight, and be there at 2, 3 in the morning, like, hey, teach me how to produce, teach me how to do this, teach me how to do that. You have to be hungry, because they will see that, you know, you will learn, because no one's gonna really teach you while you're there, honestly, unless, you know, you have that cool connection, but you have to go after it and literally think outside the box, like, you know, put yourself out there.
Be proactive, not reactive.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I'm hearing with you guys and like moving out of the box and kind of like set an example for yourself of, you know, always pushing through so that you can move on to other opportunities and things like that. That requires a huge skill set sometimes, not even a huge skill set, the willingness to learn new skills and a work ethic. Like you can, there's a quote people will say, like, it doesn't matter sometimes how much talent you have if someone can outwork you. So what skill sets and what type of work ethic is required in what you guys do every single day? And anybody can take this question.
Yeah, I'll jump on that. For my line of work, having an admin background, I took computer classes early on. Just knowing the basics, Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, can immediately, you know, boost your annual income by 20K, and this is speaking from experience. I think just the general, like, one, you gotta love what you do, and I know that sounds so cliche, but it's real. You know, if you do what you love, money will follow. And I think the biggest thing is, you know, learning everything that you can about that industry. Like she said, you know, if you're that type of person that this is not my job, I'm not getting paid enough to do it, this is not the industry for you. There's going to be so many people that are going to come in and take that opportunity. And then once you get in there, like she said, you have to be irreplaceable. But even just the simplistic of, you know, knowing computers, knowing a little bit about accounting, having you know, reliable transportation, having a phone that works, having a laptop, that will get you in the doors, with me at least, with passion. Some people show up with not that, and you know, you can't really do much with that. So at least starting with the fundamentals, I think across any platform can get you in the door.
I think I'm gonna answer that. You know how you have like job descriptions? If you're looking for jobs, every job online has a job description, right? And a lot of times we look at this job description list and we try to figure out what we have on that list. But I could probably say about 75% of job applications don't have the skill sets on there that you really should have. They'll list what they're looking for, but don't get caught up in that list, because there are millions of other things that none of these companies ever list, but they always want. So I used to get really nervous about that. I look at all these descriptions, like, I can't do that, I didn't study that, I don't know that, I have no idea what this is. So I had to figure out and learn what other skill sets I have, like other things that I'm really good at. And so after a while, you know, talking to people and hearing people say things about me, I would catch these things and say, oh, that's a skill set. Like somebody says, oh, you're really good at that. How did you do that? Oh, that's a skill set. Let me note that, you know, mental note. All these, and the list ended up being really long after a while, and I started to figure out, it doesn't even matter, all these job descriptions, if I get in the room and I sit with somebody, I'm gonna tell them what my capabilities are. And they'll quickly realize that I could probably do everything in this job description, but more.
I think too, just like really being a student of the game, like know the business, know what's going on. Like when you do get a chance to meet someone, whether it's in a casual setting or an interview setting, and they can tell that you're really up on trends, you're up on charts. You look at, if you're interested in marketing, tell me a rollout that you just really were impressed by. Like if I ask you, oh, well, what was a dope rollout lately? And you're like, I'm like, you're not studying the game. You're not analyzing what people are doing. You may not know how they did it. You may not know how to speak about it, the lingo, that's fine. We'll tell you all of that. But I want to know that you're seeing what's out there, because at the end of the day, we're all consumers too, and we're all fans. And we go to shows and we buy music or stream music. And so if it's not impacting you and you can't express and articulate about something that grab you as a fan, well, I can't really teach you the business because you're not really engaged. You're still thinking that there's some magical fairy like somewhere else that like makes all this stuff happen. And it's like, no, it's literally people like me coming up with an idea with my artist and figuring out how to execute it and hoping that it impacts a person like you. You know, you're the ones that can tell us, is that working? I don't know, you tell me. So I think that that's like that, and then just knowing the history of the business. Like I think that, especially like from an urban standpoint, because I mean I primarily have worked from an urban standpoint, and like people that don't know like who came before them, who don't know about records and producers and labels, and you know what I mean? I think that just also, it feels like you're not soaking in everything you could be soaking in. Like I didn't know anybody in this business. I read every single book. I would go to like the Barnes and Noble, even when I couldn't like buy a bunch of books, I just sit there and like in the aisle and like read the book. Do you know what I mean? Because that was, I mean, a cheap and or, free way to really absorb, names and stories and examples of how people persevered, how they, found a pathway, and all of that stuff, it really, you internalize it, and then one day you're in a situation where you're at a crossroads, you need to make a decision, and all of a sudden you have a lot more in there, than you think you did. I mean, I can't sit up here and say I ever had anyone like take me under their wing or be my mentor. I definitely had people though that gave me that little crack in the door, and I just kicked through the door and was like, okay, I'm here. And then of course, like a team player, like hard worker, willing to do whatever, I worked like super late nights, weekends. I go like, even right now, like I go to a coffee shop, I sit there, I go over my goals, I go over things that I can do to improve. Like always keeping in touch with your own progress is very important. Like other people are busy. They're not there to be like, hey, you're not really evolving in this position. Like, I feel like you could do more. It's like they're just passing you by. And guess what? Everybody that's above you, they're stressing about something that they got to deliver to somebody else above them. So like, they're definitely not worried about, what you may or may need to be improving upon, unless you're like messing stuff up. And then at that point, you're kind of already in hot water. So, I think just really taking that personal inventory all the time, like write down your skill set, write down your goals. Like the more that you're clear about like, well, for example, graphic design, it's one of those things that like everybody now can kind of like make stuff on their phone and blah, blah, blah. A lot of people come into my company as interns or assistants, and one day it'll be like, shoot, I need last minute cover art, we're dropping this remix, like, does anybody have any ideas? It's like, even if somebody's like, well, I'm not a professional graphic designer, you could come with like the fire idea that then now we're using, we literally just did this with an intern, and it's like, so if you know that you can do that, don't be afraid to offer that, because it's a very fast-paced, quick-changing business. And if all of a sudden it's like, oh, the stylist missed their flight, we need somebody to go to the mall, and you're like, I like shopping, I'm good at that, like I can run do that, then, and you have the confidence to go and be like, okay, I get it, I know the store, what do you need, like all of a sudden now you just became valuable as something you might have just thought, was not, like Tony said, like not on the sheet of things that you're supposed to be doing. But yeah, I think that that's also something that I see in every artist. Like I've been working with Rich the Kid. I started off like after the whole agency thing, I worked with Young Money very early on. Like I've seen a lot of artists, Chris Brown, I worked with him for 5 years. I've seen a lot of artists who, build their label side out or build up a new artist from scratch, and like, believe me, they are doing the same thing. Like it doesn't get any easier. Like I know Kanye has quotes about like, I just work every day like I don't have anything, because as soon as you think like, oh, everything should just come to me, then people start passing you by. So just know that this is like a lifelong career skill. It's not like just something that kind of gets you to this cool, cushy title. Like you're gonna need that, you know, to be able to replenish your motivation and your productivity and your inspiration, like as long as you want to be in this business.
Oh, yeah, something.
Sorry, just to add to that, I think also one of probably the hardest skills to learn for a lot of people, and I think it's really, really important, is that self-awareness, you know, of just how you present yourself and how you act and how you take everything in. You know, like personally, I'll meet a lot of people, and sometimes a lot of people have like victim mentality, you know, like, oh my God, this is not happening for me, this is like not working out, it's this person against me, and you really need to be aware and just think of different ways, like, okay, well, am I doing the most that I can? You know, like, is it me or is it really other people who are like not letting me be? You know, it's just knowing, like, evaluate yourself. Am I doing my best? Can I be doing this A, B, and C, you know? And also just that self-awareness of really staying humble too, you know? You have to stay hungry. It doesn't matter what level you are, whether you're the intern or the president, you know, you can't have the mentality that you're too good for anything or anyone, you know, because it's those people that you see that will fall, you know, like they could be really, you know, I've seen careers fall, you know, because people think like that. And it's, you know, like I always just think, like I see like Beyonce and like Oprah and all these people who just, they're never too good for like anyone, you know, and that's just a mentality you kind of have to think. And, you know, there's some people that once they get to a certain level, you know, they kind of start ignoring and forgetting where they came from. And it's like, oh, you were there at a point too. So I think it's just that self-awareness. Make sure you just stay humble through it all. It doesn't matter where you are. You know, everybody's just as important and plays a role in, you know, the big picture.
So my next question is going to be for Claire and Tony. So I think for a lot of people who are looking to get started in this industry, they may or may not have experience. If you have no experience at all, how do you get started in music?
Yeah, interesting. No experience at all. I had no experience at all. I didn't even know what names of positions were. You know, Jennifer was talking about knowing executives and things like that. I didn't know executives really. I mean, I was a fan of music, so I knew big names and the things that everybody else knew, but when you don't know nothing at all, if you know that you do want to be in the business, start to try to figure out where you might be interested in. If it's a genre of music, if it's a position that you've heard about or a friend that works somewhere, the closest thing, pick the lowest hanging fruit you can find, grab it, get into it, learn it. That might not be where you want to end up, but treat that starting position as if that's the position you want to be in forever, right? So even if it's like you guys were, you know, working in mailrooms and things like that, if that's what it is, if that's your first start, don't worry about what it turns into or what it could be. Focus on that, what's right in front of you. Treat it as if that's everything. Treat that mailroom as if it's your company. Run that mailroom as if you're the CEO of the mailroom. You know what I'm saying? And from there, keep your eyes open and keep your mind open to other possibilities and other job descriptions that may come your way, things that might be interesting. And from there, figure out what you want to do. So you're always balancing between what interests you, what you could do, and then try to figure out somewhere in between what you want to do.
Yeah, piggybacking off of that, a lot of research. You know, go after the companies you want to work for. Troll their websites, DM them, you know, reach out, email them, but be ready for it. You know, as I was saying earlier on, like make sure you have the basic necessities, the basic skill sets to, once the opportunity comes your way, you're a viable, you know, candidate for that position. Network. I mean, I do what I love. I go to events all the time, and I can't tell you how much business I get from being at a concert or being at a show. And you know, he walked in, he's like, "Oh, I met you earlier," because he connected us on some other calls. Like, network your butt off and just get involved in the community you want to be involved, whether it's events or music or lifestyle. Just get up in there, and like I said, and everybody said, once you're in, that's your shot, and don't let it go. Become Tylenol to whoever you're working with. be irreplaceable. If you're getting someone coffee, if you're, walking that dog, like, you should be making that person's day better because they don't have time to be worrying about you or micromanaging you. Be proactive. And once you get in there, the sky's the limit. You can go as far as you want with it.
And also too, if you're getting into the business and you don't know anything about it, I'm sure you probably come from somewhere. You either worked at Home Depot or you worked at Big Five or whatever it was, right? And now you want to get into the business. Don't worry about what you don't know about it. Just take the same skill sets and jump into it full force. I spoke in front of a graduating music class at CSUN about 5 or 6 years ago, which was the school that I went to, but didn't graduate from. But they ended up calling me back to come speak in front of this graduating music class, and it was an awesome thing. It was very surreal, kind of like now actually. I've been in this building probably 4 or 5 times, in this room 4 or 5 times with clients that I was working on who were either performing here or they were a part of the exhibit, huge name artists. And I'm always like, see the camera guy over there? He's saying that? That's usually me just making sure they don't need water or coffee or something, but I'm on the stage, it's kind of crazy, it's just strange. Whatever that is, wherever you came from, take that same skill set, jump into it full force, and just run with it. And just be open. Always stay open.
And one more thing, I just want to add 2 cents to that.
You're welcome.
Is basically if you don't have any experience, no one has any experience with anything they do the first day on the job, your first day as a freshman in high school, your first day as a freshman in college. This is always going to be a new experience for you. So don't be afraid to mess up. I learned so much from messing up and making mistakes and just being thrown into the fire, so to speak. When I was at Interscope interning and started doing record promotions, later on after being an assistant, I didn't know anything about the politics of radio, but I was thrown into the fire and I had a quota to hit, and they were paying me, so I had to get the job done. So I asked those questions that I felt were dumb questions and got good answers. And everybody taught, you get your education from everyone. The program directors taught me, the DJs taught me, not just the people I was working with, but everybody that I had to deal with as far as actually getting the records out there, would educate me. I started making mistakes, they correct me. You have to be willing to take that constructive criticism and know that you don't know everything, and know that it's a learning process, and you'll be all right. Just take it step by step. But yeah, don't be afraid to go into the fire and mess up, because that's the best way to get experience is by messing up. So.
And you're basically educating yourself is what you're saying, which is a lot of times that's what you have to do. You have to educate yourself. One of the kids in the class at CSUN that I was speaking to asked me, what classes should we be taking while we're here? What courses should we be getting into to help us prepare ourselves to get into the music industry? And I told them that there is no class that you can take in this school or any school to prepare you for this industry. It's constantly changing. There's no course, there's no teachers in any school that is going to be able to teach you what you need to know to be working in this business. But not to say anything about any school or institution, because they're all great and they all do well, and a lot of great people come out of these classes and courses and things like that and graduate from these schools. But it's not about the classes you take, it's about how you take those classes. It's about how you turn your assignments in on time, how you work with your peers, how you get information, how you study. Those are the skill sets and things that you learn in school. So because it's been hard for me even, because I went to school, I had student loans, and I'm still paying on those student loans, but ask me how many times anybody in this industry has asked me what school I went to and if I graduated.
I was just talking about that the other day with my friend. I've never had to show my degree to anybody.
Not one. But I'm still paying for it, right?
I'm still paying for it too.
Still paying for it. So I had to tell myself to not be upset about it, to say, okay, I went to those classes, I did those courses, I did my 2 years, but I can't say that I didn't learn anything from those classes. None of those classes taught me anything about this industry. I'm upset and bitter. But no, I had to really think about it and say, you know what? No, it was how I took the classes and who I learned from and the people I met and all of those things. So all that stuff now, thinking about it, was worth every penny, and it's worth me still paying for those student loans.
So my next question is for, somebody's like, yeah, right, I'm tired of this. My next question is for Jen and AK. If you could tell your younger self anything, what would it be? Like, if you're talking to younger AK, younger Jen right now.
Man, that's funny going into the school conversation right after my brother. Not to discourage anyone that is in school. Any parents in here, I'm sorry. But I would have never went to college.
What?
I would have never went to college.
It was the best time of my life.
I would have never went to college. I would have went straight into an entrepreneur, project mindset. I would have used that clean slate of being able to get financial assistance towards starting like some sort of business or just working towards what I'm doing now, building my credit, that kind of stuff is what I would have been doing.
I can understand.
If I can go back to being 18 years old, I would have never went to college. Financially, it was probably the worst decision I ever made financially. So, I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest. And that's because of the way the system is set up, but that's a different conversation. But
we don't have enough time.
anyone that is in school, if you're in school for something, that you feel like you can have a career in, go for it. It's not the same thing for everybody. It's different for, everybody has a different way of making it and a different game plan on how to win. But me, personally, Harris Kirkland, talking 31-year-old Harris Kirkland, talking to 18-year-old Harris Kirkland, it would have been like, bro, just start working.
I think I would have said, just go ahead and follow like your gut instinct. I think that, when we grow up, we have a lot of expectations put on us. There's a lot of things that people envision for us when we're younger, and they think, oh, you're good at this, you should be doing this, or oh, you're really smart, you should go, be a doctor, lawyer, this, that, or the other. And it really took me till like a few years ago, honestly, to even just like be completely at peace with like the fact that I didn't follow my traditional master plan that I did have for myself when I was like 16, and before then, because I always saw myself going to law school. I always saw myself having kind of like this corporate, I guess I saw that there was a stability factor there. I saw that there was sort of this achievement factor of like checking, things off. Having certain degrees and then working my way up, and that vision was like still ingrained, just like so ingrained that I didn't really even take the job when I got the assistant job. I was gonna do my 1 year off thing, and I was like, yeah, I'll just do this for a year, and then it turned out that I ended up staying longer than that year, but just like it took me a long time to get that little voice out of my head that's like, you're not doing the right thing, this is not a real job, this is not a real career path, like you need to, I still was even like, I one summer, I guess, like maybe after I was here for a year or so, I like took some UCLA classes like during the summer, because I was like, okay, I have to get back in this like grad school thing, and I think that just like ate at me, and I think that, what I was actually doing was out here, working hard, learning about myself, and learning the things that, are ultimately, like we've all said, like the things that are gonna take you through further in life. But it's at that time, whether it's the financial aspect, whether it's the going home at Thanksgiving and people are like, honey, what do you do again? And where? And what is the company? Like, I never worked at, a big company. The agency that I started out was like a mid-sized agency, like well respected, but not anything I could go home and tell people, I don't even know that they would have known Interscope, but I could have been like Universal Music Group. I don't know if you guys heard of it, but in general, like that gets hard in a way to not have that validation if you're coming from, that type of a background. Now, on the flip side, you could come from a different type of family that's, musical, that has an understanding already and appreciation kind of for it. But without that, I think I just